87 days. We've only been in this year for 87 days. Think of everything that has happened in that amount of time. A lot of highs, a lot of lows. Within those 87 days, there have been 13 school shootings. As a result of those 13 school shootings, there have been 27 killed and 44 injured. According to Times Magazine, there have been 239 school shootings since 2014. As a result, there have been 138 killed. No one wants to talk about school shootings. No one wants them to happen. It's not a political agenda. We want to solve this problem and keep it from ever happening again. Although sometimes it seems to become a political agenda, and there are so many options to choose from, and many people have different viewpoints. For example, Emma Gonzalez, she was a survivor from the Parkland, Florida school shooting. She feels that the only way that we can prevent school shootings from ever happening again is if we ban all assault rifles and make stricter gun laws. She feels this is the only way that we'll be able to protect the students in the schools and keep shootings from happening again. She feels that it's because of the guns that these shootings keep happening. While on the other hand, the NRA feels that it is not the assault rifles that are causing this problem. They feel that it is the actual shooters. This is Nicholas Cruz, the shooter of the Parkland school shooting. They feel that they need to provide better programs for people to understand how to use these weapons and when to use them, and to keep a closer eye on these people who are at risk of becoming shooters. There are also other options that people have been discussing. For example, they feel that we could use clear backpacks in schools so school staff would be able to see inside the students' backpacks and make sure there are no weapons. They also feel that adding more metal detectors in the schools will help you to detect what's going on as well and keep ammunition and weapons from entering the school. They've also suggested having more security on campuses, and even they've gone as far as suggesting to arming school teachers. What if I told you there were a myriad of other options? What if I told you that this little guy could be the solution to our problem? As you know, this is a canine police dog, and they are used in the police force, and they are known for their renown, strength, and ability in all different situations. To better showcase their abilities, I have a video I would like to show you. Just to precurse it, it is a little graphic, so be prepared. As you could see in these videos, the dogs are capable of a lot of different things. And as you also may have noticed, that some of the people who were shooters, they were wearing large padded outfits. This is because some of the examples were actually training courses for the canines, and they were in training while these examples were happening, while others were actually in real life. And the reason they wear these big padded outfits is obviously to protect themselves from the dog's bites, yet still the dog's bite is so strong and intense that they can still receive bruising from the dogs even with these extremely large padded outfits on. Also in these videos you may have noticed that the dogs seemed very aggressive and seemed to bite even harder and shake even harder throughout about everything that was happening. The reason being is that the dogs are trained that when someone is resisting them that they are supposed to detain, the dog is trained to readjust its bite and to bite even harder and hold even stronger. That way the shooter cannot get away. My sister is a certified canine dog trainer, and I was able to watch and observe her train some of her canines. And the way she does this, she has a foam pole and she holds it out in front of the dog and gives the attack command, and the dog then bites onto the foam pole, and while it is holding onto the pole, she shakes this loud rattle with long ropes on it and beads all around the dog, making a lot of noise, and she's yelling, and she has a really large stick that she hits on the ground right next to the dog as hard as she can and starts rubbing the dog hard and kind of pinching the dog. And this is to encourage the dog to readjust its bite and to bite even harder on that foam pole. When it does, she rewards the dog. This is so even if the shooter or someone is trying to get away from the dog or making a lot of noise, the dog still holds on to the person and does not let them get away. There are also dogs that are called cell extraction dogs that are used in prisons for when police guards do not feel safe going into a cell. What they do is, if the prisoner does not willingly come out, they put a vest on the dog and then a chain, and they send the dog in, and the dog will get a hold of the prisoner, and then they pull the chain, and the dog's bite is so strong on the prisoner that they are able to literally pull the prisoner out using the dog as an anchor and can extract the prisoner that way. Now this may seem a little drastic, but I feel that canines are a great option to have in schools to help prevent future school shootings. The reason being is canines are usually also trained to be able to detect, to be able to smell out guns, ammunition, money, and drugs. Therefore, we wouldn't have to have annual drug checks in schools. That it would be constantly going on because there would be a dog inside the building. Also, there are already, usually schools have a security member on campus, so the security member would just have to have training to become a dog handler, and they'd be able to bring the dog with them along campus and keep a constant checkup on people, and the dog would constantly be smelling and searching for these weapons. Also, there are some downsides to having canines in schools. For example, the canine is obviously an animal, and there are liability issues that come with that. The high school students would have to understand that this is a dog on duty. They can't run up to the dog and try petting the dog or try being its friend. The dog is trained that if anyone comes in an attacking manner, to attack back and detain the person. Therefore, students would have to understand this, and if they were to go up and touch the dog and a dog were to bite a student, there is a potential lawsuit there. Also, these dogs cost anywhere between $10,000 and $20,000. So if a shooter were to shoot a dog, that is a very huge loss. But you also have to weigh the idea that a human life being lost is much more than the cost of money. Although there has been a discussion going on about security on school campuses, being too afraid to go into the school buildings when a shooting has occurred. This was a big issue in the Parkland, Florida shooting. Some of the security members did not go into the building, whether they were confused about what was happening or they were too afraid to go inside the building. A canine would be especially helpful here, because if everyone else in the school was in lockdown and it was just the shooter wandering the halls, they would be able to send in the canine, and the canine could go in and detain the shooter and wait until the police got in there to handcuff him and take him into custody. Although the students would have to understand that in a situation like this, they would have to go into lockdown and could not be panicking and running the halls. If they were, the dog might get confused and detain a student rather than the shooter. That is why it's important to have the dog handler near the dog at all times. So basically what I'm trying to explain is that there are so many options rather than going all the way to the left or all the way to the right. We need to find somewhere that we all feel comfortable in the middle, that we can all agree on, to try and to experiment and see what else might help. There are so many options out there. We must dare to think unthinkable thoughts. We must learn to explore all the options and possibilities that confront us in a complex and rapidly changing world. I completely agree with this statement. We can't stay in the norm. We have to branch out and search for other options, for the best option. When danger is breaking down the doors of our children's schools and threatening their safety, we can't be all bark. We have to be a little bit of bite too. Thank you.